welcome to the show for today. You are watching Perspectives, and I am host Alana McLaughlin. This morning on the show, I have Fred Beasley II here discussing his background, his education, his early life, and the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville through his creativity. And Fred, I just want to thank you for sharing your time with me this morning. I want to thank you for just kind of giving me a little slice of your life this morning. And to get this episode rolling, to get this first segment off, I'd like to talk early life. Baby Fred years. Take me through the earliest beginnings that you can think of. Tell me where you're from, kind of what the home life looked like, and you set up those Baby Fred years for me.
Baby Fred years. Well, first I want to say thank you for allowing me to be here. It's a pleasure and an honor to be on this historic Nashville show that has just been a timeline of greatness. So I'm excited to be here. So early Fred Beasley II years. I was born, I want to say in East Nashville, I remember early. We lived in an apartment, but soon we moved to South Side. So I'm South Side to the heart, raised on a street called Villa Place. And on Villa Place, that's right now an area people know as 12 South, the 12 South area. Back then we called it South Side. So I was raised there. I first went to school at a school called Waverly Belmont. Then I went to Fall Hamilton. From Fall Hamilton, I went to Aiken Elementary, and I actually helped build, now they got a park there called Dragon Park. I helped build that dragon. So if you look close on that dragon, my name was somewhere on that dragon. From Aiken Elementary, I went to Rose Park Middle School. So shout out to all my Southside family from Edge Hill, that whole area. From Rose Park Middle School, I went to John Trotwood Moore. From J.T. Moore, I then went to Hillsborough High School, and I graduated in 1989.
Now, Fred, before we go any further, I have to know, how did these different institutions shape you? Think about those early years, those kind of early adolescent years from everywhere, from Waverly Belmont to J.T. Moore. If you can think of just specific experiences that you had throughout just that schooling experience, tell me just how those schools kind of molded you.
Those schools molded me in a way that was very, very unique. What a lot of people don't realize is that Nashville has always been a melting pot of various cultures, various social and economic backgrounds. So growing up, I had friends from the whole spectrum. And having all those different friends from that whole spectrum, it inspired me to want to be consistently curious about learning. So I had friends from Bellevue, I had friends from North Nashville, I had friends from East Nashville. Also, at one time, my father was also a manager of the housing development. So as a young child, I would go to John Henry Hale, I would go to J.C. Sudicum Homes, I would be all over Nashville. And it was those early times that really, really gave me a certain sense of empathy.
Yeah.
So I would get to see how people lived from various backgrounds.
And not only just developing that empathy, I want to talk about just kind of how creativity was born and kind of nurtured throughout that adolescence. Tell me a little bit about the art and kind of the music and entertainment that was popular at that time or that you were into. And this is all the way up from age 0 to the year 1989. And you just think about those early kind of inspirations and tell me a little about them.
So I come from a family that's a musical family. My father played saxophone at Cameron High School. He also played saxophone at the TSU marching band. So music was always a part of my background. Unfortunately, when I went to Rose Park, I'll tell you a funny story. My father got me in the band, but so one of his former classmates was the band director at Rose Park High School. So they got me a saxophone and got me on it, but I was terrible on the saxophone. But because this gentleman was a family friend, he gave me an instrument that we call a triangle. And he said, I want you to hold this triangle, and when I point to you, just hit that. Exactly. So that was my foray into band. But soon, with the explosion of hip-hop music, I remember being at Aiken High School and a song by the Sugar Hill Gang came out called Rapper's Delight. I was in the 2nd grade and actually had that record. And I fell in love with rap music. So soon I started writing my own raps, and I had one of the first rap groups in Nashville called Technique, and we put out a record out at a very young age, and when I was in 9th grade, and that kind of made us local celebrities. So from putting that early record out, that set me up to travel the world, doing my creative exploits.
And Fred, kind of to wrap this first segment, tell me a little bit about producing a tape, especially back then. What did that look like? Were you burning it on CDs, on vinyl? Actually, I want to save that for our second segment because I just have to pick your brain a little bit about that experience. But you be ready to tell me just a little bit about physically what that process looked like. And I encourage our viewers to tune into the second segment of Perspectives, where Fred and I will return to discuss his background, his education, the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville, and more. Welcome to the second segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin. You are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I've had Fred Beasley here, and I've had him in our first segment set up his early life, his early background, and just some of the early inspirations that molded him as an adolescent. And we're coming back in the second segment to continue the conversation about who Fred is, how Nashville has shaped him, how all the places that he's lived have shaped him, and the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville through his work. Fred, we had just left off in ninth grade. You formed a rap group and produced a tape. Tell me all about that. Tell me just some of the guys that you were working with. Tell me about actually putting together a tape. What did studio sessions look like in the 80s? What did producing a tape and getting it out to people, were you like passing them out physically? Because like the internet wasn't what it is now. You tell me in your own words about that experience.
Yeah, so the internet didn't exist then, but what we did was we actually recorded it. It was actually a single, a 12-inch single. And we recorded that single on Music Row at Al Jolson's studios. That's a whole history lesson within itself. But recording the single was very exciting because at that time rap was very new. And especially having a rap group in Nashville, Tennessee was almost unheard of. But I had a great group of guys I worked with. I had a guy named John Dawkins, another young man named T.K. Kimbrough, another brother named Shannon Sanders. And we formed a group that was just guys getting together and having fun and doing what we loved. The record had a great response in Nashville, all the way to places like Kentucky, Alabama, Florida. And again, it made us local celebrities, and it also sparked our love for creativity and entrepreneurship, as well as our love and camaraderie for each other as friends.
And all this happening in ninth grade.
Yep.
Tell me what the rest of high school kind of looked like. You've hit the ground running in ninth grade. You have a solid friend group. You're building up kind of some notoriety in town. Tell me about just some of the experiences at Hillsborough High School, both musically, creatively. Did you continue to produce music? Where was your head going? Take me through the Hillsborough years.
So to be clear, in Hillsborough, we were those guys. I say that respectfully. You know what I mean? We were those guys, but being those guys, they say with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah.
So it was just the opportunity to be trailblazers.
Yeah.
And as being a trailblazer, we kind of set the mark for what creativity looked like.
Yeah.
And we perform at pep rallies, we perform at shows throughout the city, we perform just all over, anywhere that we could, just to get the word out. At skating rinks, it was a big thing back then. See, I'm from old Nashville, where people we went to Rivergate skating rink.
Yeah.
We went to Charlotte skating rink. They had Greek shows, they had step shows. That's when you could ride through Hatley Park and things like that. So we performed anywhere and everywhere that people would listen to hip hop music, and it was just a great time because we were actually some of those people who were considered to be the benchmarks or the gold standard for success. And from there, I went to New York City. So I took the show on the road when I graduated high school. The day after graduation, next day I was on a plane going to New York.
Fred,
yes.
Before we go any further, you've got to tell me what made you choose New York. How did your parents take this? Just tell me a little bit. The day after graduation, you're like barely 18, and
17 to be exact. My parents were always supportive of what I was doing, but New York sort of chose me. So I've been going to New York ever since I was a young man, a baby, basically. My earliest memories of being there when I was 4 years old, 5 years old.
Yeah.
So the great part about me going to New York was I left Nashville, Tennessee, and moved to a place called Hollis, Queens. So Hollis, Queens is that's Run DMC, that's LL Cool J, that's Tribe Called Quest. So I moved right into the thick of things, and it was just like being in a utopia of creativity. So I was very, very excited about that. And at the same time, it was just, it was a chance to show people that Nashville has always had sauce. Nashville's always been flavorful. So I was that representative of Nashville on that grand stage.
Tell me, again, we're going just straight into life in New York. Something really interesting that you said to me was that the lessons that I learned in Nashville helped me stay afloat in New York. And tell me about that. Most people don't think that you would take anything from Nashville to New York. Most people would think that you kind of abandon like the Southern stuff, that whole vibe, and take on this, you know, this kind of the New York, a little bit grittier, a little more fast paced. But you tell me kind of how you were able to incorporate that Nashville upbringing into this new life in New York.
Yeah, so a lot of people get confused when they think about New York because they think that New York is just this, it becomes this place because so much media is shown there. But what happens when you really get there, you'll find that a lot of people who live in New York actually have roots in the South. So those Southern roots and those Southern values are something that fortified me when I got in New York because I had my great aunts there. I also had a great upbringing with my father, and just being raised by a man gave me a certain backbone and a certain sense of internal fortitude that served me well as I walked as a young man through the streets of New York City. So again, it's just those common values, those down south traditional morals that people have seemed to have forgotten some way. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It makes perfect sense. And I want to kind of know how you tapped into your creativity in New York. You're coming out of high school, you're like a local celebrity in Nashville, you have this interest in music, you're coming into New York, which is almost like a hub for rap music at this point. Were you still pursuing music? Were you exposed to art and entertainment that kind of like shifted your mind? Tell me about those first maybe 5 years in New York and what Fred was into.
So yeah, I was into a little bit of everything. So one of my favorite things was actually like riding the trains and going from Queens to the Bronx to Harlem to Brooklyn. So I had a family member, I had an Aunt Frances, who's like my guardian angel now, who actually lived in Harlem and also had a house in Queens. So going between Queens and Harlem, I got the best of both worlds because when you actually do the history of New York City, a lot of the stars of New York moved from Harlem and they moved to Queens. So Malcolm X lived in Queens, James Brown lived in Queens, John Coltrane lived in Queens, Jackie Robinson lived in Queens. So Queens was also, again, a utopia for black excellence. So I was surrounded by these examples of just black people doing their thing creative-wise, and that inspired me and also let me know that I had the potential to add on to this great pantheon of black genius.
Fred, what was the first step? Were you writing? Were you producing music? Were you performing in New York? And you know what, Fred, this is another one of those things that I've got to save for that final segment because I really just want to know kind of the meat of it. I want to know exactly what you were into in New York. I want to know how the 30 plus years in New York shaped you. I want to know how you've brought that back down to Nashville and just kind of the impact that you're having on Nashville through these shared experiences. And so you be prepared to talk to me about that in our final segment. And I encourage viewers to tune into our final segment to hear Fred discuss his creativity, his background, his education, and the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville. Welcome to the final segment of the show for today. For viewers just tuning in, I am host Alana McLaughlin, and you are watching Perspectives. This morning on the show, I've had Fred Beasley II here discussing his background, his education, kind of his life experiences, and ultimately the impact that he seeks to leave on Nashville through his work, through the shared kind of experiences and the different kind of environments that Fred has been in. We're talking about just his entire life, which honestly we haven't even covered a quarter of Fred's life. But we're coming right back in this final segment to talk about just some of the works that Fred has ongoing today. And we're going to end this segment just talking about ways that we can support him, why we should support him, and how we can support other creatives in Nashville. Fred, we're in New York. You're freestyling. You're moving around. You're having a good time. Take me through New York life. 30 years. You give it to me in 30 seconds.
30 seconds. So it's the golden era of hip hop. So everywhere you look, it's Tribe Called Quest. It's LL Cool J. It's Big L. It's a Young Nas. So I'm in sections with it's a Young Wu-Tang. It's LL Cool J. So I'm in sections with all of these so-called greats, and I am holding my own. I'm freestyling with them. I'm going to the Lyricist Lounge. I'm performing all over New York City, and I'm letting people know that, guess what? Nashville got something to say too. You know what I mean? And again, those experiences shaped me because it proved that we can hold our own, and we do hold our own very well.
Yes,
so
sir.
It was just a great time to be alive.
Now, when did you transition from music to kind of penmanship? What inspired you to write your first book? Tell me about just the makings of it, and you tell me about the entire thought process associated with producing this book.
So music, as a music person, I was always a writer. So the whole thing about music, great songs tell great stories.
Yeah.
So those things have a great parallel. And my thing is, as I started to mature in life, I wanted to definitely give something back to the younger generation that could tie them into their own creativity
Yes, sir.
in a way that was very easy to follow, but at the same time that was very fun, and that had some of the life experiences, lessons that
Yes,
I
sir.
learned, and I wanted to put that into this book. So again, it was a very easy transition, a seamless transition, because again, as a songwriter, the key is writing great stories. So those storytelling abilities transcended to the book.
Tell me a little bit about the book in your hand.
Okay, so this is my book, Karu the Happy Dragon, and it is basically about a dragon who has to make a pivot in life.
Okay.
And it shows us that even no matter how high we ascend, how much we go, that you can never really enjoy those peaks until you understand what it means to travel through some of those valleys.
Yes, sir.
And that, to me, is a lesson that all young people can learn, also that older people can learn as well, because it's something that we always have to do. And as we go through those peaks and valleys, what we find is the ability to pivot and recreate ourselves gives us the ability to re-energize, gives us the ability to rejuvenate ourselves, and also gives us the ability to find greatness within ourselves, sometimes that we also actually overlook, because sometimes life can knock the wind out of you.
I agree. Tell me, kind of who did the illustration for this? Flip through a couple pages. Let me just see a little bit about this book.
So I'll start with one of my favorite things. The book is, in the beginning, is dedicated to my children and my nieces and my nephews and all the beautiful children all over the world, and basically says, never put down your crown. Because I want young people to know that they have an inherent royalty in them.
Yes,
as
sir.
children of the Most High, it's our duty to be creatives.
Yes, sir.
And as human beings, what are we being? Are we being our best selves?
Yes,
so
sir.
with this book, I wanted to use this book as a way to inspire young people and even adults to be their best selves. And another thing, it says, I got this quote from Muhammad Ali, I'll read to you guys. It says, the recipe for life: a few cups of love, a tablespoon of patience, a teaspoon of generosity, a pint of kindness, a quart of laughter, a piece of concern. Mix willingness with happiness, add lots of faith, stir it up well, spread and expand over a lifetime. Next, serve to each and every deserving individual that you meet. And that's just a recipe for life. And that, to me, that in a nutshell sums up what Haru the Happy Dragon is about. And the dragon is sometimes seen as a mythical character, but that mythical character, to me, represents us as creatives, as well as us as Nashvillians, because they say that, people tell me all the time, I've never met a real Nashvillian before, you're a unicorn. So that unicorn status, to me, also ties into what a dragon is, that mythical thing. But again, that unicorn and dragon relate to the greatness and the uniqueness that we have as creatives and as Nashvillians.
And Fred, your entire brand is about being a creative.
Yes, ma'am.
And we talked in our first segment about those early experiences of you as a creative. And I think it's really interesting that one of your first creative endeavors just as a child was over at Dragon Park, helping build the park. Did that have a little bit to do with choosing?
So now you're cooking with grease, my girl. So yeah, so again, the dragon has always been something that's been tied directly to me as a youth, and it's something that, again, when I started to write the book, it kind of just was seamless again.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Fred, what's the impact that you seek to leave? Not simply just encouraging children to be their best selves or just to be a creative. How does Fred want to be remembered in this city, across this country? What's the impact that you'd like to leave on people?
That's a great question. I feel that my impact I want to leave with people is that you have the ability and that God put something in you that makes you unique. And when you use your unique ability, you can do things that even you didn't imagine that you could do.
Yes.
So that's a piece of what I want to leave people. You know, just the understanding that they have greatness within them, and that it's their job and responsibility to live that greatness out, no matter what. And again, there's going to be ups and downs. It's going to be peaks and valleys. But as long as you have your seatbelt fast and you have your faith with you, you will be able to achieve things that I think will surprise you.
Heck yeah.
So, and again, being a Nashville, a lot of people don't understand that the greatness and the richness that Nashville has for creativity. From Jefferson Street being compared to Tulsa, Oklahoma. You know what I mean? From James Brown saying he came to Nashville and created the funk was created in Nashville. Jimi Hendrix being in Nashville. Just so many great things, so many great people who've come from Nashville. The people, Dick Griffey, who actually started Solar Records and Death Row Records, is from Nashville.
You mentioned Shannon Sanders earlier, and it would be remiss of me not to say that he was the pilot episode of Perspectives. He's the creative director of Broadcast Music Incorporated, and an all-around just kind of awesome guy. And so you are completely right when you say that we have like greatness that has been born and kind of bred in this city, nourished in this city. Yes. You are completely right.
And I think it's important that young people in the city realize that, and they don't fall into the narrative that Nashville has nothing to offer, that they don't have anything to offer. They have to know that, you know, J.C. Napier produces greatness. Ed Sheeran produces greatness. John Henry Hale produces greatness.
Joe Johnson, North Nashville.
Exactly, produce greatness.
We've got children from Pearl in the NFL.
Exactly.
Greatness.
So yeah, shout out to my man, Coach Fitzgerald, who was a coach at Hillsborough High School when I was there as well. So he's now a legend in coaching. I got to shout out people like Cue Ball. I got to shout out people like Reverend Goodwin from the church I went to as a young man. Michael Graves. I got to shout out my father. I got to shout out my grandfather. So there's so many great people that come from Nashville that people don't know about, all these great untold stories from Meharry Hospital, Fish University, Tennessee State University to produce Sweats, exactly. Tennessee State producing gold medalists, you know what I mean? So it's just the Fish Jubilee Singers. I mean, we can go on and on and on, but I would encourage people to look into the history of Nashville.
Yes, sir.
I would encourage people to look into the history of their own families and understand what it means to be a child of God and how great that is and how great you are inside of you. And even just being here on this show, you come from a line of greatness. This was your grandfather's show. And what that means to be here, to me, it's like, it's a crown jewel. So you are a crown jewel of our city as well. So I just want to encourage all Nashvillians to continue to study themselves and study their greatness and to come together and put that greatness on display because we have something to offer.
Thank you, Fred, for sharing your time, your experiences, and just a little bit of life with me. And thank you for sharing that inspiration with me. I've known you for years and been able to witness you for years, and you've been an inspiration time and time again. And to just hear the kind of the background of this inspirational person has been mind-blowing. Thank you, Fred. And I hope that I know that God will continue to bless you in all that you do, and I hope that all the wonders of the world are coming right to your doorstep. Thank you to my viewers for allowing me one more morning to share the stories that matter most to Nashville. I wish you a good morning.